Hello, Dr. Ramachandran. This is Jelda De Silva, and I'll be the host for this interview for today. Thanks a lot for joining for this interview and agreeing to share your insights specifically on the space of education, higher education in India, and the role that KJ Somaiya is currently playing in order to develop holistic leaders. My first question to you is, sir, you have been in the industry for more than 3 decades now, and you have been part of the corporate. You've enjoyed corporate success. You've been part of academia. How did this journey of academia unfold for you, sir? Why did you choose the path of academia?
So in some ways, this is like, coming full circle and coming back into academia, which is where I started from. But there is something beyond this. I mean, it then begs the question, why management? Because my roots were originally in science. Okay, so all my research was in science. And the reason is that when I joined the corporate world, initially I joined in the R&D, transitioned into multiple roles, and eventually into business leadership roles. And this was primarily enabled by the opportunities that I got for executive education in management as I was working. And one of the things that I realized that in this process is that a lot of the principles of management that are taught, actually does work. Yeah, because I had that privilege of learning, applying it, So I also came out of my career with a great conviction on the importance and the value of management education. At the same time, I also had a front seat view of the gap that many graduates have between the industry expectations and what the graduate outcomes from many business schools are. So one of the reasons why I joined this is, coming back to academics and coming back to a business school is to see if, as a practitioner, can I bring a greater value to bridge this gap? Yeah, and of course, this conviction that I have out of my career of 3 decades of the value of management education, adds to that a great deal.
Got it, sir. So, as a dean and director of a renowned institution like KJ Somaiya, you probably had first-hand insight specifically in terms of the kind of trends that are currently shaping the path of higher education. So what, according to you, are the 3 trends that you feel are going to determine and impact MBAs currently and as well as MBAs in the future?
Yeah. So specifically in the Indian context, it's the economic growth, right? So we went from a 2 trillion to 3.5, and we aspire to be 5 to 10 to 15 in the next. Now, this calls for tremendous growth in the private sector enterprises, which would then, if this growth has to be met, aspirations has to be met, it requires good, skilled business leaders to run their enterprises, come up with new enterprising ideas, run new, organizations, etc. So, one driving theme is the demand for business school graduates. Good business school graduates, in my opinion, will continue to grow over the next decade or so, primarily driven by the economic growth that is expected in the Indian context. The second very important trend is that the technology cycles are becoming shorter and shorter, right? The technology cycles used to have decade, 2 decades, 50, 60 years ago. Today it is into, half a decade and even shorter than that. So what this means is that some of the skills that you learn in a business school becomes redundant within a year, and perhaps in the near future, by the time you graduate, they become redundant. So what should a business school education focus on? I believe that one of the primary things then the business school should focus on is teaching how to learn, how to be an agile learner, how to be a fast learner, how to get out of that comfort zone, experiment new things. So that's the second trend that I expect. And the third is that, and is a big significant trend, is that um, for-profit enterprises in the past existed primarily to make profits, right? In the past decade, globally, and perhaps even in India to some extent, this has shifted to three P's, one P to three P's. So it has become people, planet, people, and profit. Yeah. I think now we are seeing a further two P's being added, which is purpose and the process, or the means how we are going to achieve these things. And this is all driven by all the changes that we see, the climate change impact, the geopolitical situation. All this is demanding this change in the way enterprises, or the focus of the enterprises. If that's the case, then the business leaders who come out of business schools, or students who come out of, graduates who come out of business schools, will have to have a completely different orientation. Yeah. They should have deep appreciation for what's happening with climate change, right? They should have a recognition that in their individual capacity and their capacity as leaders in an organization, they might be in positions to influence this. They should have deep appreciation for the inequities that exist, in our society, and that the inequities cannot continue. And again, as leaders, they have an opportunity. So how does the business school bring out a generation of graduates who are sensitive, and deeply understanding all the dynamics, and that their role has changed from somebody who primarily drives profitability and profits and maybe the shareholder expectations. They have a much wider responsibility to the society and to the country and to Earth. So that's those are the three trends, in my opinion, that are currently driving business education.
Got it, sir. So when we see these trends, we also see that there are certain skills that start getting demand, specifically when it in the business world. How is Tejas Somaiya ensuring that your students are prepared with the kind of skills and the right attitude to make sure that they navigate these trends to find success?
Yeah. So there are a couple of areas that we. So I would give you a couple of examples. So we have, from last academic year, redesigned our program. We used to have a lot of sector-specific programs like retail management, integrated marketing communications, MBA in financial services. So we've realized that perhaps this doesn't cater to the needs, or it only caters to a very narrow segments and needs of the industry. So what our newly designed program, as the first year, students go through foundation subjects. These are subjects that are carefully chosen, which make students understand some of the enduring principles of management and some of the new trends. For example, ESG is a foundation course today in our program, because if you don't understand ESG and go into the corporate world, you are at a disadvantage. And similarly, things like design thinking, right? Or how do you think about a problem? This we teach as a subject. Some of the technology subjects like R and Python, we also kind of put them as foundation courses, because as an MBA, whatever you specialize in, these principles of management, technology appreciation is something that is going to be very, very important for your success. In the second year, obviously, they have an opportunity to specialize in some of the classic kind of subjects, whether it is marketing, finance, operations. We are also introducing data science and analytics as a major, HR as a major. And in addition to that, they are also an opportunity to choose one of the 8 minors, which include, in addition to these subjects, other subjects like analytics, business economics, etc. And a minor is something that complements your major, right? It gives you skill set that enhances your major kind of concentration. So that we believe is something that will help to prepare the student for a career, uh, which, by the way, as you probably very well know, you might start off in the finance, with the finance concentration. Maybe your first job is in a bank, but we have a lot of alumni who started there and ended up being heads of companies. We have people who started in marketing who ended up being bankers. So I think that sets you up for this kind of, and this is going to be extremely important as in the coming decades, when career shifts are going to become much more frequent, in the coming generations. So it sets them up for that. The second one is, of course, I alluded to it partly, but it's the technology orientation that our program provides. We are actually an institute that is blessed with a data science department because we have for a number of years been providing a master in computer application. So that faculty is now working with our core MBA faculty to make sure that our MBA students have a technology appreciation. The third part is we also have sector-specific programs, like we have an MBA in sports, MBA in healthcare. Now here, for example, if you take MBA in sports, upwards of 40% of the time the students spend outside the classroom. They're doing internship. When we had the recent International Olympic Committee meeting, our MBA sports students were completely for those 2 weeks, in the meetings, helping to organize and volunteering. What better way to learn, sports management than being in such international kind of events and learn by doing and learn by learning from some of the best people out there in the world. Similarly, healthcare, again, we are blessed to have Somaiya Ayurvihar, which is a completely healthcare educational setup, which has got a nursing college, a medical college, a physiotherapy college, a Ayurveda college. So our healthcare students actually, very closely kind of spend a lot of time in these premises learning firsthand what healthcare management is all about. So these are a few examples of how we are helping to make sure that the students are, really able to cope up with the demands of the. I would also allude to a couple of other things. In our own core curriculum, we now introduce something called a capstone project, which starts from end of their or middle of their first year, where we attach them to a industry and give them a problem statement, and they actually work with the company for the next 6 months. So even our classes are kind of scheduled in such a way that they have classes in the morning, so in the afternoons, they can go and work at the company or work on the problem of the company. So this is in addition to the internship, the classic internship that every MBA student does. So I think it's a increasingly emphasis on experiential learning, right? Integrative kind of learning, and trying to connect what happens in the classroom with what happens outside in the real world.
Got it, sir. What do you feel is the 3 factors that an institution that needs to possess in order to keep up with the trends and make sure that you're producing visionary leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one is very, very clearly how close you are to the industry, right? So do you have close connections with the industry at across the leadership, which allows you to really understand what are those trends, right, early on, and then bring that back into the academic programs in the institution, right? The second is, of course, any business school, there are, hundreds of recruiters who are coming in and interviewing students and going through the whole process. So having a systematic process to capture the feedback of the recruiters and what is missing and what do they find, and then again taking this back into the class, into the academic programs, is another way to make sure that we are in tune with what's happening in the market. And the third, of course, is the research that your faculty does, right? I mean, are your faculty doing research in cutting kind of areas, which allows the institute to really see the trends and detect the early kind of trends, and then again bring it back to the classroom. Yeah. So these are, I would say, three. But I would also emphasize that one thing we should not forget, as I kept emphasizing, is that some basic principles of management will not change, right? And understanding, clear understanding that those principles of management will not change, and they need to be taught, and the students need to have a grounding. The second thing is the competencies that the industry look for is, can we have examined this over the years? They are a generic set of 8 or 10 competencies, right? Importance of some might go up, come down. So again, is the business school cognizant of what are those competencies, and are you designing your program to make sure that those competencies are helping students to kind of develop those competencies? I would say is fundamental, right? And that doesn't change with time. The importance, as I said, of competency might change. One of the things that we are doing today is at our business school is that all the first year students who come in, they go through a competency assessment with a professional, assessment agency. So even when they start their journey in our school, they already have an understanding that that is likely to be my strength, right? And this is my area of development. So this is all going towards this principle of how are you constantly in touch with what's happening, the changes that are happening, and how do you tune your programs to meet those demands.
Got it, sir. So when we talk about the structure of the program or the curriculum, the conversation often revolves around the impact of the industry and the exposure that the student gets to the real business world. In this regard, sir, how is KJ Soma ensuring that you create skill experts who are not just ready for seamless transition from industry, but also have leadership competencies that help in innovation?
Yeah. So first, let me, after I took over, we have kind of set 4 goals or objectives for the institute. One of them is around our ranking, improving ranking. The other is about accreditations. The third one, which is relevant to state here, is that our objective is to make sure that our graduates are what I call as day one ready, which means a balance between hard skills, soft skills, and a non-compromising attitude to values and governance. So your question is really about how are we doing this, day one ready graduates, right? So there are multiple ways. One is, of course, like any classic business schools, we have board of studies for our different subjects and programs where we have industry experts sitting in those, board of studies. We have alumni sitting in those, and they help us also give input on, are we teaching the right subjects and are we teaching the subjects the right way? So that's one. Today we have at KJSM on an annual basis anywhere from 40 to 60 industry experts who come in to give visiting lectures, right? In fact, one of the objectives that we are pursuing is that upwards of 20% of a course will be facilitated by an industry expert in the form of a visiting lecturer or a master class. So that also ensures that there is enough industry input. So somebody learns the concept, let's say talent management, right? And so we get an HR person from a company to really come and talk about how does a company really work on a talent management, right? And how does that company really implement talent management? So you actually see the concept in practice in the. So that's the second. I talked about the capstone project, the internship, the live projects. So these are all some areas, some initiatives which really ensures that the graduates are day one ready. I talked about how all our students' competencies are measured. On the other hand, we also have something called Student Progression Index, where we look at the holistic development of a student based on an index where 45% weightage is given to their academic credentials, so CGPA, so to speak. We have an initiative where, sorry, every week we send out articles from the global magazine Economist and the 10, which is a digital business magazine, one of the leading investigative business magazines in India. And we ask students to 2-3 reflective questions and ask them to read. And by end of the week, each one of them have a mentor faculty. So about 13-14 of them have a mentor faculty. They have to either submit whatever the mentor faculty is seeking, a kind of a brief paper, or they have to go to the mentor faculty. Faculty might decide that let's have a debate on this topic, right? So that's so they get 15 marks is in the student progression index is allocated to that. Then we have 10 marks for any certification programs that they do on their own, right? Industry-led certification. 10 marks for competitions that they go and attend, right? And we encourage our students because that's a very good way to really sharpen some of your communication skills and thinking skills, etc. And we have something called career and conversations, where every month on a Wednesday or a Saturday, we bring CEOs and CXOs and we have a conversation about how did their career develop, right? So this is to help students understand that MBA is not the beginning and end of a career. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that you do in order to make a career. And who best to learn this than from CEOs and CXOs who have actually achieved that, right? And the last is we give 10 marks for their physical activity and involvement in sports. Somaiya and our campus is blessed with some of the best sporting facilities in India. We have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. We have 6 squash courts. We have even a mountain climbing center. We have a racing track that is, global in its, almost like Olympic kind of racing track. So we want our students not just to spend time in classes and studying. Physical fitness is an equally important part of being a graduate and pursuing a career, right? So that's the holistic development that we are currently kind of looking at. I will give you a quick example of an article that we have sent out this week. It is from an economist, and it says, when your colleagues are also your rivals, how managers should balance competition and collaboration. So we have sent this out to the students, and we have asked them to comment on saying, guys, we are thinking of introducing normalization of your exam scores, which means it is no longer an absolute grading. We want a relative grading. So read this article and give us an argument as to whether against and for the concept of normalization of score. Something like this, gets them thinking, gets them asking questions, right? So that's what we want them to inculcate.
Got it, sir. So since we are discussing the trends that are influencing MBA and the MBA structure in general, AI cannot be left out of the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very recently, and this has been a very long debate as well, wherein people assume that AI could be something that could be a destroyer of jobs and careers. What, in your opinion, is AI considered to be a collaborator or a competition for MBAs in today's business world?
Yeah. So to me, I view AI as a collaborator, right? There is absolutely no doubt about it. I think we are at KJSM trying to bring, things like generative AI into the classrooms to help students to accelerate their learning. At the same time, help them to be aware of the potential kind of limitations and societal impact that these tools can have. Uh, that's on one hand, but it is a great collaborative tool which can improve, the effectiveness of your learning. AI is also proving to be, generative AI is proving to be tools that can help students to kind of self-pace the learning, right? Uh, there are even virtual internship now available thanks to generative AI. Right? So the power of this is humongous from an educational perspective, from an acceleration of education. Uh, you know, I sometimes challenge my communications team. Why do you want to even teach business communication anymore? Just teach them how to use, a chat GPT to write a proper letter. Right? Now, where we need to be cautionary is that students don't substitute, learning with chat GPT. So they don't write, take the answers and dump it, right? Uh, but how do you use that wisely to enhance your learning, pace your learning? I think the power of this is huge. If you are kind of open-minded and if you are really creative about how you want to use AI in the classrooms.
Got it, sir. Sir, in recent times, we see multiple government initiatives that have been conducted in order to make sure that, India's higher education sector is portrayed or exposed to the global business world. And attract students, or to attract more and more companies or more and more brands to, feature India as a global education brand. What, according to you, sir, are 2 to 3 unique selling points that can put India on the global map, specifically in terms of being recognized as a destination for MBAs?
Yeah. So one is obviously we have tremendous number of brand ambassadors all over the world, who have done their MBAs and in India and gone on to kind of lead businesses across the world. KJSIM has 14,000 alumni, and I can safely say that probably about 10% of them are all over the world, whether it is Singapore or Dubai or New York or London, in very, very senior positions, right? So I think we need to effectively market that the Indian MBA educational system is producing global CEOs, right? And this is as good as now there are lots of other statistics, the number of the percentage of successful people who get into an MBA program in India is way below what it takes to get into Harvard or some of the leading Ivy schools, right? So again, you can showcase this competition and intensity. And I think the other thing is the language of English. We teach in English, so it's a global language. So I think we need to really market that. So I believe there is a lot of number of strengths that our programs have. We can also be a lot more agile, in my opinion, than many of the business schools in the Western world. So that's agile in terms of how do you quickly respond to the market needs, how do you change your programs, etc. I think those are some of the things that is going for us, and I think it's important that we market this very well.
Got it, sir. So we are right now at the admissions season, wherein multiple institutions are accepting admissions for the upcoming batch of 2024, and there are multiple CAT MBA aspirants who have shortlisted KJ Somaiya and various other institutions. So what, in your opinion, are the top 5 factors that a student should consider, specifically when choosing the B school that they want to commit for?
Yeah. I would say that one of that would be, for instance, clearly location, right? And not because our school is in Mumbai, but if the business school is in a city which has got a thriving, industry, it really adds, because you're on the backyard of where the action is, right? And all these things that I talked about, this collaboration with the industry, getting an industry expert to come and talk, these things become much more feasible and much more frequent, and you gain. So I would say location is something that you should really think about as one very important criteria. I would also add alumni base as a very important factor, right? Because network with your existing cohort and networking with alumni is a very, very important part of being successful after your graduation. So the more the alumni base, the stronger the alumni base, I think it is also plays to your advantage, when you graduate from that business school. Then there are a couple of other things like accreditation, right? It's a stamp of approval of a certain quality of education that the institution provides. So I would say that, yeah, you should probably look at accreditation, what kind of accreditation the institute has. Ranking obviously is some other factor, although rankings are particularly, maybe I would say there are so many rankings of business schools, I would not consider all of them, but some things like NIRF, etc., where there are some very clear parameters. But at the same time, recognizing that ranking is also a game and it can be played. So that's why I didn't put it up right at the top. It is something that I would also kind of consider along with the other. But I think the most important also is you need to look at the faculty, you need to look at the pedagogy that the institute uses. You need to look at, what opportunities do they get to develop themselves holistically, which would mean some of the other factors that I talked about, the physical infrastructure that the institute has. Yeah. So I would say these are some of the factors that I would recommend that the student should really look at.
Got it, sir. So then do you have any
not just your median salary, because that, and increasingly I was pleased to see that there is a lot of discussion of late in the papers about, the salary projection as a primary indicator, because as I said, you start off in marketing and end up being a banker. So the first salary is really no indicator of what your success is going to be.
Yeah, sir. Actually, we recently had a conversation with the head of campus, IBS Hyderabad, and he had a very unique concept about this. He said, we usually look at an MBA and we see what is the ROI that we are receiving. But when a student should be looking at it, he should be looking at it from the perspective of what is the return on knowledge that I'm receiving.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And that was something that, even we feel that has to be something that the students should definitely consider. It's the kind of exposure that the institution is offering. It's a kind of return in terms of knowledge that the institution is offering that has to be on the top of the student when they're shortlisting institutions.
Absolutely. So maybe in this context, since you brought it up, one of the things that we have done recently is, set up a purpose statement for the institute, right? And the purpose statement simply reads transforming together, which then elaborates as we enable the transformation journey of individuals to a value-based and purpose-driven business leader value-based and purpose-driven leader who will build a better world, right? Now, this comes from the recognition that MBA is not the beginning and end. When you start in a business school, you're starting on a transformation journey, right? So the question from an ROI perspective that you should ask is, how transformed am I when I come out? Right? Both from a intellectual perspective, emotional perspective, self-awareness perspective. I think those should be the yardsticks that students should use to judge a business school.
Got it, sir. So my next question is more on a personal note. As somebody who has enjoyed success for the past 3 decades, I would like to understand your definition of success and how you measure it, sir.
That's an interesting one. I think my definition of success would be when you have made a difference to the people that you are with, whether it's your team, your peers, the organization that you're working for, and the society that you live in. Are you making a difference? Which then follows through. Success is also about leaving a legacy. Are you leaving a strong legacy that you know, I mean, not from an egoistic perspective, that is remembered for, years from after you have left that place. So that would be from a professional perspective success. And I think if you start with that premise, I think that also feeds back into your own personal success, which is a sense of satisfaction, a sense of, you know, I think you become a better human being. You're much more calmer, and to me that is also a success. Are you growing as an individual, continuously, right?
Got it, sir. So, last but not the least, this is the question that I like to ask almost every dean that I've interviewed, because I know this is a challenging part for you guys. If you're asked how to define an MBA, deans usually give me answers that could write books. But here is the challenge for you, sir. I want you to define what an MBA is to you in less than 10 words.
So it's a certificate that you understand how enterprise works, right? And also that you have learned how to learn and adapt to contribute to growth of an organization.
Wonderful, sir. That was really well put. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining for this interview. It was a very, very interesting discussion. I'm very confident that our readers will immensely enjoy it and have great insights, not just about the institution, but also about the journey that you have come across till now. Thanks a lot,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.